Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 695 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today we're going to be speaking with 17-year-old Morgan and her family. Morgan has type 1 diabetes, and she is allergic to insulin. Please remember while you're listening today that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. This is a standalone episode, but if you really want the full context, you should also listen to episode 504, Allergic to Insulin with Sasha, and episode 578, Allergic to Insulin Part 2, with Dr. McCann, who is today's guest, Morgan's doctor. Hey, if you're a type 1 who is a U.S. resident or a U.S. resident who is the caregiver of someone with type 1, please go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Join the registry, take the survey, support people with type 1 while you support the Juicebox Podcast. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. You can use the meter that my daughter uses. It's small and convenient and very, very accurate. contournext.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. They're an organization helping people living with type 1 diabetes. They're at touchedbytype1.org. They would love for you to check them out and find them on Facebook and Instagram. All right, I'm going to hit record, and then I just need to test everybody. So Morgan, just say hello.
Hello.
Perfect. And then go ahead, Dwayne, can you do it too?
Hello.
Excellent. And then, of course, Jennifer.
Hello.
We are all being recorded. Just lovely. All right. Okay. Let me wrap my head around how we're going to do this. Usually I just tell somebody to introduce themselves, but why don't I do that a little bit? Oh, hold on a second before we get going. Whoever's computer is making the sounds, is that a PC or a Mac?
PC.
PC. Do you know how to stop it? Because I only know how to stop it on a Mac.
I was just adjusting the volume, so I won't be doing that again.
Okay. All right. Oh, I thought it was like you got an email or something like that. All right. You know what? Let's just do it the way I usually do it. So let me tell you this. You don't need to use your last name. As a matter of fact, unless you really want people to know who you are, don't. That's up to you guys, though. I don't care, honestly. Why don't we just sort of go around the horn? Like, Jennifer, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Jennifer. We are living in Texas. We've lived here for 3.5 years. Before that, we lived in Utah. We have a daughter that's type 1 diabetic, and she's allergic to insulin.
Okay, and that's you, right, Morgan?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'll be 18 in September.
Oh, my daughter's going to be 18 in July. Are you going away to college?
No, I still have senior year.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, well, then you're going to have a good time. And Dad's here, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dwayne. Originally born in Texas. I had moved to Utah for several years before I met Jen and the kids, and we ended up getting married. And when my kids are here, we have 6 kids altogether. And then we moved back here for work and close to my family.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Jen, you have how many kids of your own?
I have 4.
4. Morgan, the only type 1?
Yes.
Is there any other autoimmune among your children or your side of the family? Celiac, hypothyroidism, anything like that?
Nope.
Just the type 1. Okay.
Yep.
And Morgan, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 7.
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? I'm going to give a little backstory now. So I did an episode with Sasha, who was allergic to insulin. And not long after I put the episode up, I got this email from a doctor who has since been on the show. So you can share her name, Morgan. What's her name?
Bonnie.
You just
Dr. McCann. Yeah.
Do you call her Bonnie?
Occasionally.
Nice. She's very nice. I had the opportunity to talk to her a number of times. She was on episode 578, which is called Allergic to Insulin Part 2. And Sasha was on 504, Allergic to Insulin. So I did not know until I heard about Sasha that this happened to people. It's just absolutely crazy. She came on, she explained what was happening to her, and I don't know, I was stunned by it. So Morgan, I want to start with you a little bit. Can you tell me when this began and how it impacted you? Do you know how old you were when it started?
Yeah, probably a year or so after I got diagnosed, it started starting to get painful and getting really large bumps and swelling where shots were done. It was just getting bad for it and got progressively worse.
So you would say that almost 10 years ago this began?
Yeah.
And it was only with your fast-acting insulin?
No, it was also with my long-acting.
Really? Okay. So whether it was basal or your meal insulin, your bolus insulin, you were getting painful sites, bumps. Was there itching or burning or anything like that?
Definitely burning. Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. And there was never a break. You never once gave yourself like an injection. You were like, oh, it didn't happen this time. It was consistent. Okay. What's the level? You must be like the toughest girl in Texas, right? Like you, do you like fall over and bump yourself and be like, it's nothing. I'll just keep going. How do you get? Yeah, right. I mean, how do you? Well, I guess it happened to you when you were little, right? So Jennifer, can you tell me a little bit about the first time this started to happen? It must have been a panic.
Well, the thing is it was kind of progressive. So at the very beginning, of diagnosis, it was injections, but she was so little, she was getting small amounts of insulin. And a year after, we got her on the pump and started doing the pump. But as she, got older, needed more insulin, it started to have reactions of pump sites being red, inflamed, painful, itchy. And so, of course, we went to the mode of it must be, the adhesive. So then we were trying barrier wipes and different methods of, it must be adhesives. Then, she wasn't having issues with other things like the Dexcom. She wasn't having issues with the adhesives and stuff like that. So then we thought, well, it must be the catheter, a plastic. So we went to metal or vice versa.
Right.
And either way, it still was having reactions. And we thought, well, maybe it's the alcohol wipes because, it's kind of, abrasive. So we were cleaning sites with, water and soap before putting a site on just to see with that. And that wasn't working. And I remember talking to a nurse on the phone and asking her, could it be the insulin? And she's like, that can't be. And I said, okay, well, all of these reactions that she's having, is this normal? And she's like, no.
How long?
Oh, okay. Jen, what else could it be?
Thanks for your input. Jen, how long do you think from when it began, the reddening and the soreness, to when you said to a nurse, hey, could this be the insulin? How long did it take you to get from point A to point B on that?
it was probably a year and a half of trying different things, and it not changing. It wasn't changing. And so I remember them deciding to do a different insulin just to see if it, would be a different reaction.
So we're not throwing anyone under the bus here, because Morgan's not just allergic to one insulin and not the others or something like that. So what insulin did you start with? What was the first experience?
The first insulin that she had was Novolog.
Okay. Then what'd you go to?
Yeah, regular. And then we tried, it's like all these insulins.
Humalog?
Sorry, what?
Humalog.
Did you try Humalog after that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when that didn't work, did you keep switching, or did you say to somebody, I'm telling you, it's the insulin?
So we switched again, and we saw an insulin called Apidra. We hadn't heard it before.
That's the one my daughter uses, by the way, for years. My daughter's been using Apidra forever. And then when that didn't work, were you just so being really serious, once you get into this situation, and I sort of want to hear about this from everybody's perspective, you're basically being told the oxygen you're breathing is burning your lungs, but you can't stop breathing. I mean, is that incredibly difficult to make peace with?
It was difficult because, I was willing to try anything, so pump sites were horrible after 3 days. So then they switched it to every 2 days, every 1 day of, having to change her sites in hopes that, she wouldn't have a reaction.
Yeah.
And after 24 hours, the doctor that she was seeing at the time, he's like, I've never seen a pump site like that before.
Okay.
And it was like, well,
great. Yeah. It's almost like taking your car to the mechanic and they don't know how to fix it. And they just start saying like, well, we're just going to swap this part and see what happens. And so do you get hopeless?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
Morgan, can I ask you, like, did you ever skip insulin or anything like that to avoid the pain?
I would try to a lot. Yeah.
Is this, I mean, did you go to therapy for this, Morgan?
Not till recently have we tried it.
Yeah. I mean, it just, I don't know, like, I know you're on the spot here, but can you put it into words what it's like to use something when you know it's going to hurt? Contour Next One blood glucose meter. It's tiny, it fits well in your hand. It has a bright light when you're using it at night. The screen is easy to use, and the accuracy is out of this world. The Contour Next One blood glucose meter features second chance test strips. So if you should head into that blood drop and get some blood, but not quite enough, and you go back in again, go get yourself some more blood, it does not hurt in any way the accuracy of the test. You're not going to waste test strips with the Contour Next One like you may with other blood glucose meters. contournext.com/juicebox. That's where you go to find out more about it or to buy the meter. There's a little linky link there for online purchases, or you can learn about the meter and then go ask your doctor. Buy it right there on the website. There's so many different ways to get an accurate meter for yourself. You don't have to just use the meter someone gave you. I know it's easy to believe that they're all the same, but they're just not. The Contour Next One is super accurate. It's easy to use, easy to carry in your diabetes bag, your purse, or your pocket. Check it out. That's all I'm saying to do. contournext.com/juicebox. If you want to get really fancy, the Contour Next One pairs with an app on your phone so you can keep track of your blood sugar tests and other such information. Don't forget to head over to touchedbytype1.org right now and check out what they're doing. They've actually got a little thing coming up this summer I'm going to be speaking at. So go pick around their website and see if you can't get yourself some tickets. Last little bit here, t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Go take that survey, please. And if you're looking for the Diabetes Pro Tips series from the Juicebox Podcast, they begin at episode 210 in your podcast player. You can also find all the information you need to listen on the Facebook page for the podcast, Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes, or at juiceboxpodcast.com. Let's get back to Morgan and her fam now. Can you put it into words what it's like to use something when you know it's going to hurt?
Very difficult, and a lot of trying to convince yourself that it's worth it.
What are you convincing? I don't mean to be morbid, but are you convincing yourself that being alive is worth it?
At times the pain would get very extreme to where I didn't want anything to be touching me, not even like air going on me.
Yeah.
So it was a lot to just be there, but then also, hey, you got to do more because your blood sugar's high, or hey, you need to do more because you want to eat.
Right. And I'm imagining, tell me if I'm wrong, but when they started saying like move your pump every 24 hours, all it did was make more sore spots on you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sore spots also lasted for like days. So you would move it, and then it would be trying to find another spot in between parts that already hurt because they hadn't healed yet.
Did you have the extra burden? Were you trying to hide them from other people so they couldn't see them as well?
Occasionally, yeah, I would, because I didn't want my friends and other people to see how red and ugly it would look. So I tried to focus the shots and the sites where people would have it covered by their clothing.
Yeah. Did you ever try, did you ever go to the extreme of changing your diet significantly?
I would try to eat a whole lot less or avoid snacks a lot.
Were you able to avoid this turning into an eating disorder?
Yeah, for the most part.
Good. Okay, that's very cool. It's already difficult, as you know. Yeah. I mean, it's funny in an awkward and odd way, but this description of like every injection is a hill to climb and, something to get over. It really is how diabetes is anyway, even without even without the pain and the allergic reaction. So you're adding, you're just multiplying it, right? It's just, it's insane. And you were so young for a while. I imagine it got more difficult as you got older and became kind of more self-aware.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So when you were younger, you were just doing what you were told and it hurt. Did you ever, like Jennifer, did she ever tell you no? Did she ever just say, I'm not doing this?
Actually, Morgan has been an amazing, diabetic, if you could be one. Like she never complained, yes, she would tell me, Mom, it hurts, I don't want anything to touch it. But yet she never told me, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have you give me an injection. She was just, okay, this is what we have to do. And I've always been one to try and be positive that, I am all for, we're going to find an answer. We're going to do this. And then it was also, she would ask, why me? And it would be, we're going to have an answer and we're going to be able to help somebody else. Yeah. This is, we're going to do this. And so I hope that I was one that never gave up hope for her. If she didn't have it, that I could give it to her.
Jen, that's amazing. Can I ask you to be a little more honest? Did you believe it when you were saying it?
At times it was difficult. I can't tell you how many times I was crying for her, which, if anybody knows me, I cry over everything. I can cry when I'm happy, mad, sad, but it's just one of those things of seeing your child go through something, which, you see that with diabetics. I wish I could take this away from my child.
Yeah.
But then to see them in constant pain,
right,
and have no answer, it's very hard to be positive. But I've always been determined that I'm going to help her. I'm going to find something. We're going to do this. So,
Morgan, were you aware that this is how your mom felt?
Yeah.
Did that make you feel bad, like guilt?
Yeah, occasionally. I always felt sad or upset with myself, even though I knew I wasn't the one causing her to be hurt.
Right. Are you allergic to anything else, Morgan?
No, not that we know of.
Even like you don't get bad hay fever or anything like that at all?
I don't think so.
No kidding. Wow. Morgan, that's just some, I was going to curse. I'm sorry. We all don't know each other that well, but it's just some really bad luck, huh? It's terrible. Can I ask Dwayne, you have an interesting perspective because you're not Morgan's natural father, but what's it like to sit back and watch this happen?
Well, I did work as a pharmacy technician for a long time. So the concept of somebody becoming allergic to something wasn't really new to me, because everyone's body reacts differently. This person's allergic to penicillin. These people are not, so, I just went into automatic mode and like, okay, let's try different syringes, different manufacturers, just went through the whole process of what I was trained on when I was a tech. And it's been rough. Last summer I went to wake her up and she's lying on her floor. And, that's the first time and she was unresponsive too. And so that was really nerve wracking. And it's like, I want to help her to make her feel better. I keep coming up with ideas. Well, excuse me, let's try some lidocaine on that spot and we'll see if that helps with this. Try some ibuprofen, try some Benadryl, just went through all those steps and just trying to find a way to help ease her discomfort with all this was just, disheartening, because nothing until recently have we been able to find that solution.
Yeah. Morgan, why were you on the floor? Were you in DKA?
Yeah.
Were you not taking your insulin?
No, we had been. My blood sugar just got to the point of it not absorbing any of the insulin and getting so high.
Oh, from the inflammation at the site, you weren't getting good absorption. Yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, that's why she had to move the pump site every day. It's because you get that tissue swelling. It didn't just hurt. You lose your absorption at that spot, so you have to move it to another spot. But then that slow moving insulin finally hits her system, and so she would go into ultra lows sometimes after being high, because she gets like a bolus along with her other shot at the new site.
Oh, it's just like a cruel joke. Morgan, I wanted to ask. Oh God, I had a question for you. I think it might have just fell out of my head, because that was upsetting. And I'm still recovering from, Jen, you almost made me cry about 5 minutes ago. So like your voice broke once, so I'm like, I'm going to cry. So, my question for you, Morgan, is kind of simple. And maybe you'll know the answer and maybe you won't. But did you, while everybody's working so hard to try to figure this out for you, at what point, I'm guessing you gave up. At what point did you just go along passively because they were trying? Like, when did you stop believing anything was ever going to help?
Probably after our first time with testing out to see the different reactions to all the different insulins that we had. We had gone to this one allergist, and I remember just going to get it tested. And just giving up because the reactions didn't show from how little amount and diluted they were. And I just remember quitting. I was done.
Just didn't matter. Like, no matter what insulin it was or how much or how diluted, you were having the same reaction at every spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so sorry. How long ago was that?
2 years ago or
2
something
years
like
ago.
that.
8 years after this started.
Yeah.
Well, Morgan, you've got a hell of a college essay in you. I'll tell you, you're gonna get accepted anywhere you want to go. It's crazy. So, okay. So, you're seeing a doctor in Dallas, and she hears Sasha on my podcast and then contacts me and asks me if I can set her up with Sasha. And that all happens. Do you get a phone call, like an excited phone call from a doctor, or
no? Like
happens?
We go into my appointment and she's ecstatic, and I have no reason or clue why.
Okay, yeah, and she's just like, you're probably like, listen, lady, I hate this place, so why are you so happy?
Yeah.
And she just told you what? What did she tell you?
That she had listened to your podcast and gotten in contact with you to get in contact with Sasha and learned about all this information about what she was going through and what they've done and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And were you like...
I was very shocked. Didn't know what to say or how to react mainly.
Right.
I was just surprised to hear that there was someone else having reactions like I was.
Yeah. And then did that make you feel hopeful, or were you still like, this probably isn't going to work for me?
I was a bit hopeful. Yeah.
Good. So Sasha was doing, she was doing that whole like, getting that insulin she had like a device she had to get from overseas, and it was like a big insurance problem, like this whole thing. Is that what you thought you were going to be doing at that point?
I didn't know what we were going to do, but I knew that there was other opportunities now. Yeah.
Okay. I got you. So in the end, you're using, I guess your basal insulin, are you, you're still using a basal insulin?
Yes.
And are you having an allergic reaction to it?
To this one, no. Right now, I'm using what's called Traceba, and it's seeming to work pretty well, and I don't seem to react to it.
Excellent. And for your meals, what are you doing?
I use Afrezza.
So you are using an inhaled insulin. Okay. Do you like it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not painful, and it's super easy to do, so.
As soon as I asked if you liked it, Morgan, I was like, that's the worst question I've ever asked on this podcast ever. Obviously, you like it, but I meant like, what I mean was it a big shift from injecting for meals? Like, what was the learning curve like?
More so learning of when I need to take it, because it reacts a whole lot quicker, but it also gets out of your system a whole lot quicker.
Okay.
Just adjusting to that is. Yeah.
Well, and what about the process of like, I've never had anybody really explain it to me before, I don't think. Like, you just kind of, is it like an inhaler? Like you see people use?
It's practically just a little inhaler. It comes in set capsules of units. So there's 12 unit, 8 unit, and 4 unit. And based on how much you're needing, you'll put in one of the units and then you'll just inhale like you would for asthma.
Right. Are you experiencing much more stability? I mean, I would imagine you are. Like, you have more stable blood sugars now?
Yeah. Before my blood sugars would like always run in like 300s and up, but since starting this, my blood sugars normally are a lot lower than that. So,
wow. Can you tell me, if you don't have to share if you don't want to, but like, what was your A1C a year ago, and what is it now?
A year ago, it was like 13.
Wow.
And our latest appointment was like 9.1 or something like that.
Wow. You're kind of just learning how to have diabetes, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It occurred to me like this whole thing has been, it stopped the process that everybody else goes through of, getting over the sadness and learning how to use insulin and, that kind of stuff, like pre-bolusing your meals and all the things that you need to learn to find stability and lower A1Cs. And you were always in a firefight, basically. You never got to the part where you got to sit down and like think about it.
Not really.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you feel better that your A1C is lower?
100%.
Yeah. Jen, do you see a difference in her personality?
Yes. First of all, with her A1Cs, she hated going to appointments because every time we'd go, they'd be like, okay, we got to work on this A1C. We got to, do better. And it, because of that, they would add more insulin. And her ratio used to be where she would get 1 unit for every 3 carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, her insulin or her A1C just wasn't coming down. She had, I think the highest that she had, after diagnosis, her A1C was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And,
you couldn't get it down.
I hated that all our work that we were doing was not shown on paper.
Yeah.
And all they could see was A1C 14. You're not doing it. Here we are.
No one ever said, hey, there's inflammation here. There's reasons why the insulin's not working.
No.
So
it wasn't until we, found Dr. Bonnie McCann Crosby is, before that, nobody, I took dozens of pictures. We'd show them, her injection sites, pump sites, and it'd be like, oh, that's bad. Okay. But they didn't ever say anything like, oh, this could affect your body, absorbing the insulin. And she'd go like at least once a year, she'd be in DKA and had to go to the hospital. And it'd be like, you got to work on your A1C. You got to do more insulin. And it wasn't until we were in the hospital for DKA and Dr. McCann was the attending physician and she came in. And of course, I'm like, these are the pictures. This is what's going on. This is, and she was one that was okay. And she had left and Morgan's like, I like her. And it was like, okay, we'll go to her. So we switched over to Dr. McCann and she was the one that actually looked at these sites. She took pictures. She, was genuinely interested in helping us find an answer. Mm-hmm. And so, having her A1C be at 9.1, we're ecstatic. And I do see a difference in her.
And every time we would go to a doctor or she was in the hospital, they have rotations for rotating shifts and everything. We'd just have any doctor that we were in the room when they came in say, oh, by the way, can you look at this? Maybe have a wound care specialist, allergist come by, take a look at this and try to tell us what's going on here.
Yeah. Just hoping if you said it to enough people, someone would recognize it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Someone would come in and go right away, oh, yeah, it's because of this.
It's a little demoralizing that it never happened, isn't it? Yes. It's crazy that, well, I mean, it's rare and all, but somebody should have been able to make the leap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the last time that she was in is when we started Tresiba. She had tried Lantus, Levemir, Basagard. And then finally in the hospital, they put her on Tresiba and we're like, okay, this one works.
Yeah,
so that one. So,
well, I would imagine just getting on a basal insulin that wasn't causing you a problem probably started to bring her A1C down and create some stability. Do you wear a CGM, Morgan?
Yeah, I do.
Is that like, but before this, was that CGM just basically like depression on a screen for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't like looking at it at all.
Yeah.
constant reminder that my blood sugar was never where it's supposed to be.
Tell me if, even though, I mean, it's obvious to everybody, and I'm assuming to you as well, and you've said it already, that this is not your fault, right? But it doesn't stop it from feeling like that, does it?
No, not at all.
Okay. You actually are, like, so how long have you been using is it, by the way, I'm sorry, is it a Freza, or is that how they say it? A Freza?
A Freza, yeah.
Freza. Okay. How long have you been using a Freza?
It will be a year in September.
A year in September. So now you can look at your CGM and start making more thoughtful decisions about using insulin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a 9. Let me ask you a question. Do you mind if we talk about management for a second? Do you guys?
Sure.
Yeah, Jen, you don't actually listen to this podcast, right?
No, I do.
Do you?
I do.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you a couple of questions about your basal. How much do you take a day?
I take 32 units in the morning and then 56 at night.
Of Tresiba?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you are still pretty... Is that a resistance to the insulin? Have they ever checked you for insulin resistance?
I'm not sure.
No.
No, they haven't.
They haven't. So 32, 56, really? So 8. Hold on, 2. I'm mathing over here, which is not my strong suit. Sorry. So
And we just went through a round of having her text me whenever she did a Freza, how many units, and I would put in, the text message gives me time and date. And I built a spreadsheet on that and sent it to Dr. McCann's office. They looked at her Dexcom stuff from their side so they could see where she was at that time and date and make some adjustments based off of that.
Yeah. Hey, overnight, Morgan, do you sit stable somewhere? Does your blood sugar sit stable overnight?
Sometimes.
Do you?
Not at 4 a.m. this morning.
Not at 4 a.m.
Not this morning, no.
So the way I talk about using insulin here, and basal's still basal, is that basal's kind of the most important part. It's the foundation and the building block of your management, right? And that away from meals, so away from meal insulin, which would be a Freza in your example, and away from active food in your stomach. So once your food is empty, your stomach is empty. If your basal is doing its job well, you are stable at the number you mean to be at, which means if you want to be at 100, you should be stable at 100. If you want to be at 90, there's an amount of basal that should hold you stable at 90, 120, etc. And so it's just very interesting to me. I mean, I don't think of insulin as a lot of insulin or a little bit of insulin. I think of insulin as you use the amount you need. But for perspective, my daughter, I think, weighs like 135 pounds right now, and she's 18, and she gets about a unit of basal through a pump an hour. So she's using about 24 units of basal a day, and it's and away from meals and active insulin, her blood sugar sits pretty stable between 90 and 110. But yours isn't doing that. Is that right?
No, not at all.
So I would listen. I'm not a doctor. I'm actually maybe the farthest thing from one, but I would wonder if something's not happening where you're seeing some resistance to the Tresiba.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they would do about it, obviously, because I wouldn't know if it's inflammation from the other stuff that we've been talking about, or if you actually have, I don't know, I know you're definitely type 1. I'm not saying that, but I wonder if you have insulin resistance on top of it, or what's your diet like? What do you eat in the course of a day?
I don't normally eat breakfast.
Right.
And then, no. Lunch, normally it kind of varies. Not very much then either. And then dinner is kind of a lot more.
Yeah. But nothing, you're not eating like I don't know, you're not having potatoes with rice and a cheeseburger. No. You're not taking in like a ton of carbs a day.
No.
Okay. But super interesting. Wow. Okay. Ooh. You caught me by surprise when you gave me the Traceba number. It caught me by surprise. Not that it's not bad. You understand what I mean? Like it was just more than I expected you to say. I think maybe, are you and Bonnie in conversations about this?
Yeah, we're constantly going back and forth through emails, changing and tweaking my intake for it and stuff.
So let me ask you a question. If your blood sugar was sitting at, like, let's just say 200, right? And you haven't eaten in a couple of hours, you're just looking at a higher blood sugar. If you take the Afrezza, oh my God, why can't I say it? If you do that and say you drive that 200 down to 100, right? You correct that number.
Yeah.
Does it float back up again or does it stay down there?
Normally floats back up.
Yeah, that's basal. That's a weakness in the basal.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't obviously know how you're going to get that accomplished and worked on, but I think that's your goal. I think if you figure that piece out, I think that 9A1C turns into a 6A1C.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, are you excited that might happen?
Yeah, we're always excited when it goes down.
This is such an amazingly uncommonly happy story at the end. I mean, it took forever for you to get to it, but I mean, you really were in a position where you didn't think this was going to work out. And then it just did. Do you ever have sadness that it took, like that Afrezza existed before this and you didn't know? Do you ever think?
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard not to
Definitely
think of it that way.
gets you down thinking how many years you've dealt with this and it could have been fixed if you had known.
No, I hear you.
And it is expensive. It's FDA approved for 18 years of age and higher. So the manufacturer card, because the doctor's really prescribing this off-label, the savings card doesn't work at the pharmacy for her.
Oh.
So it's 1 month supply for her is a couple of grand.
Wow.
During deductible season. So it's not going to be for everyone.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Morgan, hurry up and get to be 18.
A few more months.
Yeah. Did you ever try contacting the company directly? And tell
I know Dr. McCann contacted them, talked to, I think, their medical director and stuff, and talked because she was under 18. She wanted to talk with them about any risk associated with it, but we haven't reached out to them to talk to them about getting any assistance yet.
Well, Morgan, I would think you would be a perfect candidate to be a sponsor of that insulin for sure. Your story your story is that insulin was your only saving grace.
Yeah.
You know, like that one simple thing. You know, that company almost stopped making it a few years ago. Isn't that crazy? Like they had.
Not imagine.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I just thought of that. It gave me chills. Okay. All right. So, okay, Morgan, other questions. What do you enjoy doing? What are you thinking about going to college for? That kind of stuff.
I like working with kids. That's what I do mainly a lot. I work at a daycare actually and work with preschoolers at school for one of my classes. I'm really good at math and I'm advanced in that and probably will go into mathematics for college.
Do you think you'll do education or do you think you'll go more towards math?
Possibly.
Yeah. You don't want to be a math teacher? Is that what you're thinking?
It depends on the grade.
What age of a child do you imagine would be the best to teach math to?
Probably third grade.
Yeah.
Because that's when they're learning multiplication and I feel like it's the funnest.
Yeah. It's a good age for kids too. They're kind of I don't know, like you won't realize until you see it, but they have enough like common sense to not be complete lunatics and they haven't been hit with all those hormones yet. So they're kind of nice.
Yes.
Right, Jen? Remember when the kids were nice? Well, this is amazing. Is there anything I'm not asking you that I should be? Like, have I missed something about this story?
Not that I know of.
I did okay.
Or can think of.
Jen, how about you? Can I ask, a year after this happened now, is there been an increase in your mental health? Like, has this been a relief that's hard to put into words?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely have a whole lot more motivation to do things. Before it was hard to do things because you felt like there wasn't a point, because at some point you know that your body's just going to give out. But now with having more energy and my body actually accepting the insulin, I feel like I'm able to do a whole lot more.
Yeah. Jim, was there ever in your head that this high A1C was going to like hurt her in other ways at some point?
Excuse me. So, it's frustrating that you kept seeing it going up and up, but, she'd go into DKA and every time that she was in DKA, she was responsive. She wasn't feeling good. She went in, but, last year was the scariest. And, seeing your child lay on the floor unresponsive and having the paramedics come in to get her and having to do a CT scan to make sure that her brain is okay, and going into the hospital room and she is completely out of it, does not know where she's at, and is trying to take off her her IVs and stuff because she's wanting to get out of bed. And it just is, a moment that I won't ever forget.
Sure.
But hopefully we'll never have to go through again.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're going to have to. And it's
fun.
Good.
And in the last year, when she started the Afrezza, she went into the clinic. We have the allergist there in Dr. McCain's office as well. They get a chest x-ray just so they have a baseline in case Afrezza starts having any impact on her lungs. We go to Texas Children's Hospital, which is great. That's 5 minutes up the road. She's seen a cardiologist and a kidney doctor, just get a baseline on some of her systems to make sure that, diabetes doesn't start to impact those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting, actually, Jen, the way you answered my question, because trust me, I'm not being critical. I was trying to lead you into thinking about long-term complications about diabetes, but you're so mired down in this fight. I think that you don't have the bandwidth to look deeper than what's happening right in this moment. And that became really evident when you were answering the question. I thought, wow, like this poor family, their situation is so immediate and constant. You guys, you don't have the luxury of thinking a month away. And now you do all of a sudden. Is that must be a pretty nice change, I would imagine.
It is a nice change.
Yeah.
And also so I'm in the middle of getting my master's program or getting my master's in social work. And, just this last semester, I had some amazing things, even happen just recently because I was looking for research and came across an article about a boy who was allergic to insulin. And I reached out to the author and asked him to forward the email onto the mom in hopes that she would contact me. And she did. And they have a Facebook group. It's called Insulin Allergy and Hypersensitivity Awareness. And in there is a group of 7 moms, all with kids who have allergic reactions to insulin. And it was just another thing of, oh my goodness, okay, she's not alone.
Right.
She's not alone.
Such a big deal, right? Whether it's 7 people or 7,000 people, it's such a big deal to know you're not by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I kept telling them. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not alone. We're not alone. Yeah. You wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I'm so thankful that we have now come into a community that completely understands.
Yeah.
And so, that is one of my main goals with getting my master's degree is I want to be able to help Morgan, the best way I can, but then to be able to help others who, come into this life of feeling alone.
Yeah.
And the reactions aren't the same across the board. I mean, Sasha, who's on your other podcast, she said, I believe, that the insulin was eating away at the tissue of her skin. Morgan gets bruised and redness and pain. Another one Jen was telling me about from this new Facebook group that she found was like a bee sting where it gets raised and red and painful. So these reactions aren't carbon copy.
Right.
It's unique to these patients, these kids.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, Jen, have those other people tried Afrezza?
So other ones, they have not. I know that one of the patients, she was, whenever she tried Apidra, she would stop breathing. And so they have not tried
anything else.
Afrezza, so, and I think that they're all younger patients. They are now all younger than Morgan. The oldest one turns 18 in March.
Okay.
So Morgan is now the oldest of this group. And so, with FDA, not having Afrezza approved for under 18,
right.
I don't think any of them have tried.
I see. Well, okay. Hey, Morgan, do you know Sasha? Is like you guys hook up online and meet?
No, not personally.
That's interesting. So listen, as we wrap up here, I just want to tell you, Morgan, I know my name's not great. Scott, it's kind of like, it's not a great name. I've lived with it my whole life, but I do feel like if you have a baby ever one day, like I should get some fairly strong consideration for a baby name.
Yeah.
Do you not think? But I wanted to seriously tell you, just kind of like to put some perspective in this for you. You're almost 18, and 8 years ago when you were 10, I started this podcast. But back in 2007, I started writing a blog a year after my daughter was diagnosed. I wrote that blog for years. I eventually started a podcast. And my idea was, much like what your mom is talking about with what she's working on, is I just really wanted to help people. And at some point, it became very obvious that I really understood how to use insulin and that my daughter's outcomes were very repeatable and that I could explain it to other people and then they could have those outcomes. And then the podcast sort of just grew from there. Like, I'm just sitting in an extra room in my house right now. And I made a thing, I don't know, in 2007 that turned into a different thing in 2015 that in 2021 led you to find somebody who helped you with your thing. Like, it's kind of magical and almost hard to believe. You know what I mean? Like it's
100%.
It's crazy. What year were you diagnosed?
2012.
2012. Wow. So 6 years after my daughter was diagnosed, you got diabetes. And I started a blog because I was trying to raise money for the JDRF and I was having no luck raising money. So I started writing to people and in like this kind of email thing. And then I realized I was bothering them. And I found, Morgan, this is going to sound particularly odd to you because you're young, but I found a program that let me put my words on the internet and make a blog, which was not a thing back in 2007, really. And all these years later, you don't have sores on your body anymore. It's very cool. I don't know. I'm very excited. Yeah. I'm proud of you. And if I'm being honest, Morgan, I'm a tiny bit proud of myself right now. And I'm looking for just even if you buy a dog and you name it Scott, I think that would be appropriate. Yeah, okay.
Totally. I got you.
Thank you.
I'll add it to my pets.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing big. And you take a picture of it, you send it to me, go, look, it's Scott. Even if it's ugly, it's fine with me. I don't care really. You guys are terrific. I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this, especially coming up on a holiday weekend. But your story is amazing. I do want to just make sure one more time, like I didn't miss anything, right?
No.
You feel good about this?
Yeah.
I feel really great about it. I'm super excited for you, Morgan. As you're talking, as all of you are talking, I am sitting here thinking, like, this poor girl's life must have been drudgery. Like, just wake up every morning and just drag your ass through another bad day. And now I just feel like the last year of your life has probably felt like heavenly, you know? So you have a lot of perspective for a person your age. It's going to serve you well as you become an adult. Do you ever feel like that around the other kids? Do you ever look at them and think, I know more about the world than they do?
Occasionally, especially with my peers, you can just tell with some of them.
They haven't been through anything, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Do you have that feeling like there's nothing you can't do?
Sometimes.
May I say something? We don't know each other, but you should feel like that. You've been through a lot more than most people go through in their entire life. And you're on the other side of it now. So you have this perspective, like, you know about before and you know about now, and now's better. So, you don't need my advice, but anything's possible, Morgan. Just dream it and do it and it'll happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's so cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, Jen. I really appreciate you doing this. You sounded so nervous in the beginning. Are you okay now, Jen?
I am. I was nervous. It's the whole thing of, oh my goodness, we're actually getting our story out there. We haven't been able to have, a major platform to do that. It's always just been in the moment, whoever doctor is in front of us, please look at this, please help us, so nervous, but I'm so grateful that we were able to come on.
No, I appreciate it very much. I mean, in my mind, Sasha's story reached Morgan. Morgan's story could reach somebody else. And at the very least, if it can't find another person who's going through what Morgan was going through, I think it should serve very well to let the other people listening reset their level of gratitude. You know what I mean? Because this is because Morgan, you got way more than your fair share of bullshit. So, everybody else, I think, will listen to your story and feel pretty lucky today. And I'm just super happy for you, kid. Like, I'm so excited that this worked out for you. Congratulations. Seriously.
Thank you.
Go learn some math, and math's good, Morgan. That's a good thing to learn.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Good for you.
Taking calculus. So
and Dwayne, you sound like a good dude, man. That's a lot of kids over there.
Yeah. And Scott, if you're curious, we did look up Afrezza on YouTube, and the company does have a video on there and how it's used and everything else, and what the equivalents are between the inhaled and versus the liquid insulin. So, check that out.
Let other people find it and take a look. That's amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to thank Morgan and her mom and her dad for coming on the show today and sharing her story. I'd also like to thank Afrezza for existing and helping Morgan out. You guys want to help her, contact me, and I'll put you in touch with her. And if you guys want to buy some ads, I've got a podcast all about diabetes. You should give me a call. Speaking of ads, thanks so much to Touched by Type 1 for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, touchedbytype1.org. And of course, the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Go check it out right now at contournext.com/juicebox. Links to these sponsors and all of the sponsors are in the show notes of your podcast player and at juiceboxpodcast.com. If you're looking for community around your diabetes, look no farther than the Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes Facebook group. It has people with all kinds of the diabetes in there. Don't worry, not just type 1, but LADA, type 2, gestational, 25,000 members, all in there talking about something that you'd be interested in getting involved in, checking on, or maybe just lurking around. You know what I mean? Just be like, see what people are saying about how they adjust their basal insulin or bolus for pizza, that kind of stuff. Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. It's a terrific group. It's a private group, so you'll have to answer a couple of questions to get in. But after you do that, I think you're going to like it there. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.